Listening practice in Spanish. One of the trickiest aspects of language learning is tuning your ear into the language. When you hear Spanish spoken in the wild, it isn't going to be slow, thought-out sentences with perfect grammar and perfect pronunciation. It'll be short, quick utterances, spoken at high speed with lots of words that you don't know yet. When you work through the 3-minute Spanish courses, you'll learn lots and lots of vocabulary. But what if someone says something to you using a word you've not come across yet? For instance, somebody might say to you, "La playa aquí es absolutamente asombrosa." La playa aquí es absolutamente asombrosa. Now, in the first few courses of 3-minute Spanish, you'll have learnt most of this sentence. La playa aquí es absolutamente. The beach here is absolutely... But what was that word on the end? Asombrosa. What's that? Even though you know the rest of the sentence, your ear will automatically tell your brain to panic once you hear that last word, because it doesn't recognise it. You'll then focus purely on that word, getting into a right tizzy, forgetting the rest of the sentence, and you'll go, and your mind will go blank. I know, because when I was learning Spanish, that happened to me on more occasions than I care to remember. FYI, asombrosa is the feminine version of asombroso, which means amazing. So the sentence is, La playa aquí es absolutamente asombrosa, meaning the beach here is absolutely amazing. Today, if I heard a word I didn't understand, I would simply say something like, ¿Qué significa asombrosa? Which means, what does asombrosa mean? ¿Qué significa asombrosa? The other person might say something like, asombrosa es como fantástica or preciosa. That means, oh, asombrosa, it's like fantastic or beautiful. But what if you didn't even understand the rest of the sentence, even though you know what all the words meant? Well, that is what's going to happen at first. Somebody could utter something in Spanish, and you may well be familiar with all the meanings of all the words. But if you don't quite catch any of it, you won't know what they've said. This is where tuning your ear into the language comes in handy. You need to get used to hearing Spanish spoken at normal conversation speed. It doesn't matter what the words are, and it doesn't matter whether you know them or not. What's important is that you're able to tune your ear into the rhythm and intonation of the language. That will help you enormously when you're in a Spanish-speaking country. So here's a little exercise to give you a taster of how we can do that. Listen to this video. The first time you listen to it, just listen. Don't try to think about anything. You might pick out one word, you might pick out no words, but that doesn't matter. Just listen to it.
Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas.
Okay, now let's listen again and try to pick out any words you recognize. Don't worry if that's still no words at all.
Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas.
Did you pick any words out? This time, try and listen out for these 3 words: mucho, todos, and mañanas. I'll play it twice. Mucho comes first, and then she says todos a little later, and then she ends with mañanas.
Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas. Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas.
Okay, now let's go through the whole video and see what she says. Let me give you the entire English translation of what she says. The lady speaking is actually a Spanish actress called Carmen de la Maza, and she's talking about her grandmother, the Spanish writer Concha Espina. She says, she was really amazing. She was very disciplined when it came to working. She wrote every single day of her life. As far as I remember, in summer, she wrote every morning. She was really amazing. She was very disciplined when it came to working. She wrote every single day of her life. As far as I remember, in summer, she wrote every morning. So now you know what it means. Listen once more.
Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas. Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Yo recuerdo, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas.
Now, let's go through it a line at a time and see what we can learn from her few sentences. Firstly, she says, era realmente asombrosa. Era realmente asombrosa. This means she was really amazing. So there's that word again, asombrosa, which I used earlier. We now know what it means. It means amazing. So we had era. Era can mean he was or she was. Realmente means really. And asombroso means amazing. Firstly, asombroso means amazing, but because Carmen is talking about her grandmother, she uses the feminine version, asombrosa. Era realmente asombrosa. Then the word realmente ends in mente, M-E-N-T-E, and this is the equivalent of the English ending ly. So realmente means really. Absolutamente, absolutely. So mente is the equivalent to ly. Terriblemente, terribly. Extremadamente, extremely. Enormemente, enormously. Simplemente, simply. Constantemente, constantly. Continuamente, continually. So, era realmente asombrosa means she was really amazing. So listen to that bit again. Can you pick out all the words this time?
Era realmente asombrosa. Era realmente asombrosa.
When you listen to videos like this, have a go at repeating each utterance out loud to yourself. I used to do this all the time to practice my accent. Just copy how Carmen says it. Era realmente asombrosa.
Era realmente asombrosa.
Era realmente asombrosa. Okay, so next she says, tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Literally, this means she had a lot of rigor at the time of working. That sounds a little clunky in English, but you might be able to work out what it means. A more natural way of saying it in English would be she was very rigorous when it came to working, or she was very disciplined about work. So tenía can mean he had or she had. Mucho is a lot of, or mucho. Rigor means rigor. A la hora de, literally this means at the time of, but it's an expression in Spanish that you can use to mean when it comes to. So a la hora de, when it comes to. And then trabajar is a verb meaning to work, or you can sometimes translate it as working. So a la hora de trabajar literally means at the hour of working, but in English we say something like when it came to working. Here are another few examples of a la hora de in use. A la hora de estudiar, siempre se concentraba mucho. When it came to studying, she always concentrated a lot. Es muy serio a la hora de tomar decisiones. He is very serious when it comes to making decisions. A la hora de cocinar, él es un experto. When it comes to cooking, he's an expert. So, a la hora de means when it comes to. Anyway, so she said, tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. But actually, if you listen to her say it again, she does misspeak slightly at the start of that line.
Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar.
She says, tenía mucho rigor. So she starts off by saying tenía una, and then she changes what she was going to say to tenía mucho rigor. Listen again.
Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar.
Did you hear? Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar.
Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar.
So we've had era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Meaning she was really amazing. She was very disciplined when it came to working. So have another listen to that first half.
Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar.
She then goes on to say, escribía todos los días de su vida. Escribía todos los días de su vida. This means she wrote every day of her life. Escribía means either he wrote or she wrote. Todos los días means every day. The little word de, can mean of or from. And su vida means his life or her life. Now you can use todos los in front of any noun to mean every or all of that noun. For example, todos los días. Todos los días means every day, or literally all the days. Todos los perros. Todos los perros means every dog, or all the dogs. Todos los niños. Todos los niños. Every child, or all the children. Todos los coches. Todos los coches. Every car, or all the cars. Todos los hoteles. Todos los hoteles. Every hotel, or all the hotels. So you put todos los in front of masculine nouns. In the feminine, you say todas las. Todas las casas. Todas las casas. This means every house, or literally all the houses. Todas las mañanas. Todas las mañanas. Every morning, or literally all the mornings. Todas las mujeres. Todas las mujeres. Every woman, or all the women. Todas las escuelas. Todas las escuelas. Every school, or all the schools. Todas las flores. Todas las flores. Every flower, or all the flowers. So Carmen says her grandmother wrote todos los días de su vida, meaning every day of her life. Escribía todos los días de su vida.
Escribía todos los días de su vida.
So we've had era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. This means she was really amazing. She was very disciplined when it came to working. She wrote every day of her life.
Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida.
And then the last line goes, que yo recuerde, en verano escribía todas las mañanas. Que yo recuerde, en verano escribía todas las mañanas. This means, from what I remember, in summer she wrote every morning.
Que yo recuerde, en verano escribía todas las mañanas.
Que yo recuerde is a little expression, which literally means that I remember. But in English we tend to say things like, as far as I remember, or from what I remember. Que yo recuerde, from what I remember. En verano means in summer. Escribía we've had already, and we said it can mean she wrote or he wrote. And todas las mañanas. Todas las mañanas means every morning. We've seen todos los or todas las a couple of times now. So we know that todas las mañanas means every morning or literally all the mornings.
Que yo recuerde en verano, escribía todas las mañanas.
And whilst we're on a roll with our learning, we might as well learn the seasons, or recap them if you already know them. Carmen's grandmother wrote every morning in the summer, but she probably wrote in the spring, autumn and winter too. En primavera means in spring. En verano, in summer. En otoño means in autumn. And en invierno means in winter. So let's recap the whole thing and see if we pick up any more words this time. Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas. So we now know that this means she was really amazing. She was very disciplined when it came to working. She wrote every day of her life. From what I remember, in summer she wrote every morning.
Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde en verano, escribía todas las mañanas.
Did you understand a bit more of it that time? Or rather, did you pick out any more of the words? That was just a 14-second clip, but doing this sort of thing is really great for tuning your ear into the Spanish language. We can also use it to improve our speech and pronunciation. Have a go at trying to recite Carmen's first sentence without looking back. Era realmente asombrosa. Era realmente asombrosa. Give it a little while, and then later on, think, how did I say she was really amazing again? And try to say, era realmente asombrosa. You might try to recite the entire 14-second speech. See how much you can remember, or see how many new words you remember. Let's see how much I can remember. Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días de su vida. Que yo recuerde, she said, en verano, escribía todas las mañanas. Have a go at doing it yourself. Maybe just start with one line, or 2 lines, and then a bit later on try the whole thing. It's just a bit of fun to help you to practice your pronunciation, but by doing it this way, you really start to embed the words into your brain. Now, we learned a lot of vocabulary in this video, and if you've done any 3-minute Spanish lessons with me, you'll know I love cue cards. So let's write down some of this new vocabulary onto a cue card so we can learn it and use it in our future conversations. We've had these words and phrases. Asombroso, asombroso, meaning amazing. So put the Spanish on one side, turn it over, and put the English on the other. Realmente, realmente means really. We learnt that the ending mente is the equivalent to the English ly. A la hora de can be used to mean when it comes to. Todos los and todas las, todos los and todas las mean every. And then the phrase que yo recuerde means from what I remember. Finally, another good thing that you can do to really get to grips with all of this new vocabulary is simply to learn what Carmen says as sort of a script. Just say it to yourself from memory a few times. It'll get your brain thinking about what the phrases were. Just imagine that you're Carmen, sitting getting interviewed, and you're talking about your grandmother, Concha Espina. The person has asked you to talk about your grandmother. When you answer, be as slow as you like. The slower the better. Era realmente asombrosa. Tenía mucho rigor a la hora de trabajar. Escribía todos los días. Que yo recuerde, En verano, escribía todas las mañanas. Actually, looking back, I can see that I missed a little bit. I missed off de su vida, which means of her life. Escribía todos los días de su vida. But it still makes sense without it. Escribía todos los días means she wrote every day. So just by playing around with a few lines of Spanish, you can start to improve your pronunciation and also improve your memory for learning new words and phrases. That leads me on to another technique that we learn in 3-Minute Spanish, installing a motor. Basically, you can prepare a little speech, much like Carmen's, and then learn it. That way you'll have it prepared for when you need it. You can make these little speeches, or what I call motors, because they help you to speed along in Spanish, about absolutely anything. You can prepare one for booking a table, ordering a taxi, or even talking about your career. But you can learn more about that in my video about installing a motor. Basically, a motor is a pre-prepared little speech that helps you talk fluently without stopping to think of each word. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It was just one short 14-second clip from a random video I clicked on YouTube, and we've learnt so much vocabulary and tuned our ears a little more into the Spanish language. Gracias.